Billionaire schedules dentist appointment and freezes when his pregnant ex-wife is the one to treat him. Richard Blackwell had been suffering from a throbbing toothache for weeks, but always found an excuse to avoid seeing a dentist. A businessman accustomed to controlling every detail of his life, he hated the feeling of vulnerability that came with medical appointments. That Tuesday morning, the pain became unbearable. As he tried to focus on an important meeting about acquiring a new company, the discomfort pulsed so intensely he could barely think. That's when his secretary, Debbie, suggested the office of Dr. Jennifer Parker, a recently graduated dentist who had opened her practice in the city's upscale neighborhood. "Mr. Blackwell, the doctor has excellent reviews and managed to fit you in today at 4 in the afternoon, Debbie informed him as Richard pressed his jaw with his hand. Fine, just book it," he grumbled, irritated at his own weakness. Richard had no idea that this emergency appointment would completely change the course of his life. 3 years had passed since the divorce, and he had become a bitter man, throwing himself entirely into business as a way to forget the past. His fortune had grown exponentially, but his heart remained empty. At exactly 4 o'clock, Richard parked his black Lexus in front of the clinic. The modern, well-kept building put him slightly at ease. At least he wouldn't be treated in some questionable place. He went up to the 3rd floor where a discreet sign read, "Dr. Jennifer Parker, Dental Care." The receptionist, a friendly young woman with curly hair, greeted him with a professional smile. "Good afternoon, Mr. Blackwell. The doctor is already expecting you. Please follow the hallway to the last door." Richard walked down the silent corridor, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. The decor was elegant, with neutral tones and abstract paintings on the walls. He reached the slightly ajar door and knocked lightly before entering. "Come in, please," a woman's voice called from inside. Richard pushed the door open and took 2 steps into the office before freezing completely. His blood ran cold. There, with her back to him, wearing a pristine white coat and organizing instruments on the counter, was Jennifer, his ex-wife, the woman he had loved more than anything in life, the woman who had shattered his heart into 1,000 pieces 3 years ago. But what shocked him even more was what he saw when she turned around. Jennifer was pregnant, very pregnant. Her round, prominent belly was unmistakable beneath the coat. Jennifer's brown eyes widened in recognition. For a moment that felt like an eternity. They stared at each other in absolute silence. Time had stopped in that sterile white office. "Richard," she whispered, almost disbelieving. "Jennifer," was all he could manage, still in shock. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The situation was surreal. There stood the man who had once promised to build a family with her, the same man who had become a cold and distant stranger in the final months of their marriage. And there she was, pregnant with another man's child, pursuing the career she had always dreamed of, one he had never truly supported. I didn't know you had returned to the city," Richard said, still trying to process everything. "I came back 6 months ago," Jennifer replied, struggling to maintain her professional composure, though her voice trembled slightly. "I opened the practice 3 months ago." Richard glanced around, noticing the diplomas on the wall, the modern equipment, the impeccable organization. Jennifer had achieved her dream. During their marriage, she had repeatedly expressed her desire to specialize in dental care, but he always found arguments to dissuade her. He said she didn't need to work, that her role was to take care of the home and eventually the children they never had. "Congratulations on the office," he said, genuinely impressed. It looks very nice." "Thank you." Jennifer instinctively placed her hand on her belly. "Well, you booked an emergency appointment. What's the problem?" The question brought Richard back to reality. The toothache, which had momentarily faded with the shock of their encounter, returned with full force. "It's the upper left 2nd molar. It's been hurting for weeks, but today it got much worse." Jennifer nodded professionally and gestured to the patient's chair. "Please have a seat, let's take a look." Richard hesitated for a moment. The idea of being vulnerable in front of Jennifer, of having to open his mouth and submit to her care, was unsettling. But the pain was unbearable. He settled into the chair, which adjusted automatically. Jennifer washed her hands carefully and put on disposable gloves. Her movements were precise and confident. It was clear she had become a skilled professional. "I'll examine you first," she said, adjusting the light over his face. "Open your mouth, please." Richard obeyed, closing his eyes. Feeling Jennifer's delicate hands near his face brought a flood of memories. He recalled lazy mornings when she would caress his face, tender kisses, promises whispered in the dark. Jennifer murmured, examining him with a small flashlight. "There's a deep cavity here. It's probably reached the nerve. That's why the pain is so intense." "Is it serious?" Richard asked when she moved the instruments away. "You'll need a root canal. It's a longer procedure, but it'll solve the problem completely." Richard sighed. A root canal meant multiple sessions with Jennifer. "Can we start today? I can't take this pain anymore. I can do the initial prep and medicate you. We'll continue next week. It'll take about 3 sessions to complete." Jennifer began the procedure, applying local anesthesia. As they waited for it to take effect, an awkward silence settled between them. "How many months along are you?" Richard asked, unable to contain his curiosity. Jennifer paused for a moment before answering. 7 months. Is it a boy or a girl?" "A girl," she replied, a subtle smile appearing on her lips. "Her name will be Emma." Richard felt a pang in his chest. During their marriage, they had talked about having children. Jennifer had always said that if she had a girl, she'd want to name her Emma. It was an old dream of hers, inspired by a beloved childhood teacher. "Emma is a beautiful name," he said sincerely. "Thank you." Jennifer tested the anesthesia and began working on the tooth. During the procedure, Richard watched her focused face. She had matured, gained a confidence she didn't have before. Her skin had the glow of pregnancy, and there was a serenity in her features he had never seen during their marriage. "That's it for today," she said after 40 minutes. "I'll prescribe a painkiller and an antibiotic. The pain will ease significantly in the next few hours." Richard got up from the chair, still a bit dizzy from the anesthesia. "When can I come back?" "Next Monday. Same time. Debbie will schedule it for you at the front desk." They walked together to the office door. Richard stopped at the threshold and turned to her. "Jennifer, it's strange meeting like this." "Yes, it is," she agreed. "But life goes on, doesn't it? For all of us." "Emma's father, does he treat you well?" Jennifer looked down for a moment before answering. "It's complicated, Richard. Some things are better left in the past." Of course, sorry for the intrusive question." "Don't worry. See you Monday." Richard left the office with his mind racing. On the drive home, he couldn't stop thinking about Jennifer, pregnant, professionally accomplished, seemingly moving forward with her life. Part of him felt proud she had achieved her dreams. Another part ached with a deep pain, a mix of longing, regret, and something he couldn't quite define. At home in an empty mansion in Beverly Hills, Richard took the prescribed painkiller and sank into his favorite leather chair. He glanced around the impeccably decorated room, styled by an expensive designer. Everything was perfect, sophisticated, costly, and utterly soulless. He remembered the modest house where he and Jennifer had lived in the early years of their marriage, when he was still building his fortune. It was a small townhouse, but she had turned every corner into a warm home. Plants in the windows, family photos on the walls, the smell of cake wafting from the kitchen on weekends. How had everything fallen apart? When exactly had they stopped truly talking? When had he become so obsessed with money and status that he couldn't see the wonderful woman beside him? The divorce had been his fault. He knew that. In the last years of their marriage, he had grown distant, demanding, controlling. Jennifer had tried everything to save their relationship, but he'd been too blind to see it. Their last big fight had been about her wanting to go back to school. Jennifer had been accepted into a dental care specialization program, but he had vehemently opposed it. "Why do you even need that?" he had said at the time. "We have enough money. Your job is to take care of our home, our family." "But we don't even have children yet, Richard," she had replied, tears in her eyes. And this has always been my dream. You knew that when you married me. Dreams change, Jennifer. We grow up. Now our priority should be building a family. And why can't I have a career and a family? Other women do it. Because I don't want a wife who works outside the home. I want someone dedicated to our family like my mother always was. That had been the last straw. Jennifer had filed for divorce a week later. Richard, in his arrogance, had thought she was being dramatic, that she'd come back. By the time he realized she was serious, it was too late. Over the weekend, Richard could barely focus. The image of Jennifer pregnant wouldn't leave his mind. He caught himself wondering what the baby's father was like. Was he a better man? More understanding? More present? Monday came quickly. Richard was nervous as he entered Jennifer's office. This time she greeted him with a professional smile, though less tense than during their first appointment. "How was your weekend? Is the pain better?" she asked as she prepared her tools. "Yes, much better, thanks for the medication." "Good. Today we'll remove all the infected pulp and start cleaning the canals." During the procedure, Richard watched Jennifer work. She was meticulous, careful, explaining each step. It was clear she loved what she did. "You've always been good with your hands," he remarked when she paused. Jennifer smiled. "Remember when I fixed that kitchen faucet you couldn't figure out?" "I remember," Richard chuckled. "You said I had no practical skills." "And you didn't," she laughed, and for a moment, the tension between them eased. "Jennifer, can I ask you something personal?" She hesitated before answering. "Depends on the question. Are you happy?" The question caught Jennifer off guard. She stopped organizing the instruments and looked directly at him. "That's a hard question to answer." "Why?" "Because happiness isn't a permanent state, Richard. It's made of moments. I'm happy when I'm working, when I feel Emma moving, when I get a smile from a patient whose problem I managed to solve. But I also have my fears, my insecurities." "What kind of fears?" Jennifer sighed and sat in the chair beside him. "Fear of raising a daughter alone. Fear of not being a good mother. Fear that my daughter will ask about her father, and I won't know what to say." Richard felt his heart race. "Her father, he's not around." "It's complicated," Jennifer said, avoiding his gaze. "Very complicated. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. At that moment, Richard realized there was something Jennifer wasn't telling him. His intuition, sharpened by years in business, told him there was more to this story. "If you want to talk about it," he offered hesitantly. "No, I can't. At least not now." Jennifer went back to work. "Let's wrap up here and schedule the next session." Richard left the appointment even more intrigued. There was something in Jennifer's expression, in the way she dodged the subject, that left him unsettled. All week, he couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said about raising her daughter alone. By the third appointment, the tension between them had eased considerably. They talked about neutral topics, the weather, changes in the city, mutual acquaintances. Jennifer seemed more relaxed, and Richard noticed she was enjoying these meetings as much as he was. "All done," she said, applying the final bandage. "Treatment complete. How are you feeling?" "Much better. Thank you, doctor." Richard smiled. "You've become an excellent professional." "Thank you, that means a lot coming from you." Richard stood but made no move to leave. "Jennifer, can we talk? Outside of here, I mean. Maybe grab some coffee?" She hesitated. "Richard, I don't know if that's a good idea. Please, there's so much I want to say. Things I should have said a long time ago." Jennifer studied him for a long moment before sighing. "All right. There's a cafe on the corner. We can go after I finish with my last patient." An hour later, they were seated at a small table in the cozy cafe. Jennifer had swapped her lab coat for a navy blue dress that accentuated her pregnant belly. Richard couldn't help but admire how beautiful she looked. "I wanted to apologize," he began, nervously stirring his coffee, "for everything that happened during our marriage, for not being the husband you deserved." Jennifer lowered her eyes. "Richard, that was 3 years ago." You don't have to. Yes, I do, he interrupted. I was arrogant, controlling, selfish. I only thought about myself, my goals, my success. I couldn't see that you were fading beside me. You were building your empire, Jennifer said without bitterness. I know that was important to you, but it shouldn't have been more important than you, than us. They sat in silence for a moment. Richard gathered the courage to ask the question burning in his mind. Jennifer, about Emma's father, you said it's complicated. What happened? Jennifer took a deep breath and rested her hands on her belly. Do you really want to know? I do. Well, after our divorce, I was shattered. I felt like I'd wasted the best years of my life, like I didn't even know who I was anymore. I decided to start over from scratch. And that's when you went back to school. Yes, I enrolled in a dental care program, got a scholarship and moved to Rochester. It was a difficult time, but also liberating. I was discovering who I truly was, what I was capable of. Richard listened intently, feeling a mix of pride and remorse. In my last year of college, I met someone, Jennifer continued. A professor. He was older, divorced, with 2 teenage children. He was intelligent, charming, treated me as an equal. After years of feeling diminished, it was intoxicating. Did you fall in love? I fell in love, Jennifer corrected with a bitter smile. He said he fell in love. I later found out I wasn't the first student he'd been involved with. Richard felt anger rising in his chest. He used you? In a way, yes. When he found out about the pregnancy, he panicked, said his career would be ruined if the relationship came to light. He offered me money to take care of it. Take care of it how? You know how, Richard. Richard clenched his fists. The thought of someone treating Jennifer that way infuriated him. What did you do? I told him where to go and decided to raise my daughter alone. I finished college, took some exams, saved money, and came back here to open my practice. Does he know where you are? He does, but he's never reached out. He sent a lawyer with papers for me to sign, giving up any rights. I signed them. I want nothing from him. Richard was amazed by Jennifer's strength. The fragile, dependent woman he'd once known had become a warrior. You're incredible, he said with genuine admiration. You always were, but I was too blind to see it. Richard, no, let me finish. When you asked for the divorce, I thought you were being stubborn, dramatic. I assumed you'd change your mind in a few weeks. I never imagined you'd actually rebuild your life, become independent, fulfilled. Jennifer smiled sadly. You underestimated me. Terribly. And I hate myself for it. Don't. We both learned and grew from everything that happened. They talked for 2 more hours. Richard shared how he'd become even more obsessed with work after the divorce, how he'd amassed a considerable fortune but lost the ability to enjoy anything. Jennifer spoke about the challenges of studying while pregnant, setting up a practice, preparing to be a single mother. When they said goodbye outside the cafe, Richard felt something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he had a purpose beyond business. Can I call you? He asked hesitantly. Richard, you know our situation is complicated. As friends, he quickly clarified. Just as friends. I know I don't have the right to ask for more. Jennifer studied him for a moment before writing her number on a slip of paper. Over the next few weeks, Richard called Jennifer regularly. Casual conversations, asking how she was feeling, if she needed anything. Jennifer, initially wary, began to appreciate this new version of Richard. He had changed. He was more attentive, more interested in others, less self-centered. He asked about her pregnancy with genuine concern, offered help without being intrusive. One day, Jennifer called him in a panic. Richard, can you take me to the hospital? I'm having strange pains and my car's in the shop. Richard dropped everything and rushed to pick her up. On the way to the hospital, he held her hand as she took deep breaths, trying to manage the pain. Everything will be fine, he reassured her. You and Emma will be okay. At the hospital, the doctor explained it was just false labor, normal at that stage of pregnancy. Jennifer would be monitored for a few hours, but there was no cause for concern. Richard stayed by her side the entire time. He brought water, adjusted the pillows, talked to distract her. Jennifer watched him, surprised by his dedication. "Why are you doing this?" she asked when they were alone in the room. "Doing what?" "Taking care of me. Of us." Richard thought before answering. "Because I want to be here. Because for the first time in years I feel useful. I feel human. Because you shouldn't go through this alone." "Richard, you know this baby isn't yours, right?" "I know. But that doesn't mean I can't care about you both." Jennifer felt tears forming in her eyes. "I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated. I want to be here." That night, something between them changed for good. It was no longer the ex-couple reuniting by chance. It was something new, different, more mature. In the weeks that followed, Richard became a constant presence in Jennifer's life. He helped with heavy groceries, accompanied her to doctor's appointments when she allowed it, and assembled Emma's crib one Saturday afternoon. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Jennifer asked, watching him read the assembly instructions carefully. "I am. By the way, do you remember how bad I used to be at this kind of manual work?" "I do," Jennifer laughed. "You'd call a carpenter to change a light bulb." "Yeah, I've been watching YouTube videos. Learned how to fix a faucet, replace an outlet, assemble furniture. Found it relaxing." Who would have thought? Richard Blackwell doing manual labor. The old Richard would never do this. Thought it was for poor people, a waste of time. And what changed? Richard stopped screwing and looked at her seriously. "I met an amazing woman who showed me that the value of things isn't in how much they cost, but in how much they mean." Jennifer looked away, moved. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Richard finished assembling the crib and stepped back to admire his work. It was a simple white crib Jennifer had chosen from a budget store. Nothing like the expensive furniture he used to buy, but it was put together with care, and that made all the difference. "It's perfect," Jennifer said, running her hand over the smooth wood. "Will Emma like it?" "She'll love it." They were in the room Jennifer had prepared for her daughter in the small apartment she'd rented near her practice. It was a simple but cozy space, decorated in pastel tones and full of love. Richard looked around and realized he felt more at home in this modest apartment than in his mansion. "Jennifer, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Have you ever thought about the possibility of us trying again?" Jennifer sighed and sat in the nursing chair Richard had given her as a gift. "Richard, you know it's complicated. Because of Emma. Not just because of her, because of our history, because of who we are now. But we're different people now. I've changed. You've changed. We have, yes. But that doesn't erase the past. You hurt me deeply, Richard. It took me years to recover, to trust myself again." Richard sat on the edge of the crib. "I know, and I know I don't deserve a second chance, but it's not about deserving or not. It's about reality. In 2 weeks, I'll have a daughter. My life will change completely. I can't afford to gamble on a relationship that might not work out. What if it does? And what if it doesn't? What if you realize having a child at home is more complicated than you imagined? What if the routine wears you down? What if you go back to being the controlling man you were before?" Richard had no answer to those questions. Jennifer was being rational, practical, but in his heart, he felt this time would be different. "Can I at least be there when Emma is born?" he asked in a small voice. Jennifer looked at him for a long moment. "Do you really want this? More than anything?" "Why? She's not your daughter, Richard." "But she's the daughter of the woman I love," he said without hesitation, "and that makes her special to me too." Jennifer felt her heart race. It had been so long since she'd heard those words from Richard. "Richard, I love you, Jennifer. I never stopped loving you. I know I ruined everything between us. I know I have no right to say this, but it's the truth. I love you more today than I did when we were married, because now I know what I lost." Tears began to stream down Jennifer's face. "You can't say this to me now. Not like this." "When can I say it? After another man realizes the treasure you are, after you remarry and I'm left watching from afar." "Richard, stop. Please." "I won't stop. I spent 3 years silent, thinking you'd come back, that you'd realize we were made for each other. Now I know the problem was never you. It was always me. And if there's even the slightest chance for us to have a second opportunity, I'll fight for it." Jennifer struggled to rise from the armchair and walk to the window. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. "You left me, Richard," she said without turning around. "You emotionally abandoned me long before the divorce. In the last years of our marriage, I felt like a ghost in our home. You walked past me as if I didn't exist. I know, and I hate myself for it every day. You made me feel small, incapable, stupid. You questioned every decision I made, every dream I had. You made me believe I was good for nothing except being your decorative wife." Richard stepped closer, keeping a respectful distance. "Jennifer, I was a fool. I was young, arrogant, thought I knew everything. My mother was always dependent on my father. She never worked, never questioned anything. I thought that was the right model for marriage. And now? Now I know I was wrong, completely wrong. You're the strongest, smartest, most independent woman I know. Seeing what you've built on your own fills me with pride and shame at the same time." Jennifer turned to him, her eyes red from crying. "It's not just about that, Richard. It's about trust. How can I trust you won't become that man again? Because I've learned. Because losing you taught me more about myself than any other experience in my life. Because I've discovered money and success mean nothing if you have no one to share them with." "Words are easy, Richard. Then give me the chance to prove it with actions." At that moment, Jennifer felt a strong contraction, different from the ones before. She leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths. "Richard, I think it's time." "Time for what?" "Emma is coming." Richard panicked for a few seconds before composing himself. He grabbed the hospital bag that had been ready for weeks and helped Jennifer down to the car. On the way to the hospital, Jennifer held his hand tightly, breathing as she'd learned in the birthing class. "Everything will be fine," Richard repeated, more to calm himself than her. "Richard, if anything happens to me, nothing will happen. But if it does, promise me you'll take care of Emma, that you'll tell her about me." "Jennifer, don't talk like that. You'll raise your daughter and watch her grow up, graduate, marry, and have children. I promise you that." At the hospital, Richard stayed by Jennifer's side through the entire labor. He held her hand, wiped her sweat, whispered words of encouragement when she thought she couldn't go on. At 4:30 in the morning, Emma was born, a tiny but healthy baby with her mother's dark hair and a strong cry that filled the delivery room. Richard cried when he saw the girl for the first time. He cried with relief that Jennifer was okay, cried with emotion at witnessing that miracle, cried with happiness for being there in that moment. "She's perfect," he whispered, watching Emma in Jennifer's arms. "Do you want to hold her?" Jennifer offered. Richard hesitated. "Can I?" "Of course you can." With extreme care, Richard took Emma into his arms. The girl stopped crying and looked at him with her dark, curious eyes. "Hi, Emma," he whispered. "I'm Richard. I'm a friend of your mommy." Jennifer watched the scene with a tight heart. Richard held Emma as if she were made of glass, with a tenderness she had never seen in him before. "Thank you," Jennifer said. "For what?" "For being here, for taking care of us, for being the man I always knew you could be." Richard handed Emma back to Jennifer and sat in the chair beside the bed. "Jennifer, I won't pressure you anymore about us. I know you need time, space, but I want you to know I'll be here, for you, for Emma, for as long as you both want. As a friend, as whatever you want me to be." Jennifer smiled, tired, but happy. "Let's see how things unfold." In the following months, Richard became a constant presence in Jennifer and Emma's lives. He helped with late-night feedings, changed diapers, let Jennifer rest while he cared for the baby. At first, Jennifer was tense, thinking Richard did it out of obligation, but little by little she realized he genuinely loved taking care of Emma. The man who once said children were solely the mother's responsibility melted completely when the girl smiled at him. "You're a better father than many biological dads I know," Jennifer said one afternoon, watching Richard give Emma her bottle. "She's special," he replied, not taking his eyes off the baby. "You're special." "Richard, no, let me say this. These months, taking care of you two, have been the best of my life. I've learned more about love, about family, about what really matters than in all the years before." "And what did you learn?" "That family isn't about DNA. It's about choice. It's about being there in the hard moments, celebrating the small victories, loving unconditionally." Jennifer felt tears in her eyes. "Emma loves you," she said. "She smiles differently when you arrive, and I love her as if she were my biological daughter. Honestly, I can't even imagine my life without you two anymore." Emma had finished her bottle, and Richard put her over his shoulder to burp. The girl, now 4 months old, was a calm and smiling baby. "Richard, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If we got back together, would you want more children?" The question took Richard by surprise. "Do you want more children?" "I've always wanted a big family. Emma shouldn't be an only child." "Then yes, I would. Very much. Even knowing it would be hectic, exhausting, expensive." Richard laughed. "Jennifer, do you really think I care about money now? I've learned the best things in life don't cost a thing." Emma's first smile, the way she sleeps on my chest, how you sing her to sleep. That's priceless. Jennifer got up from the couch and moved closer to him. "Richard, I want to try again." "Try what?" "Us. I want to try again." Richard nearly dropped Emma. His hands shook so much. "Are you sure?" "I am. You've proven over these months that you've really changed. The man here isn't the same one I divorced, and I've changed too. We're different people now, more mature, wiser." "Jennifer, but I have conditions. Whatever you want. I want us to do couples therapy. I want us to talk about our problems before they get big. I want you to promise me you'll never try to belittle or control me again. I promise. All that and more. Whatever you want. And I want you to legally adopt Emma. I want her to officially be your daughter." Richard felt his heart nearly leap out of his chest. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. She loves you. You love her. She deserves to have a real father, someone who'll always be there for her." Richard kissed Emma's forehead and then leaned in to kiss Jennifer. It was a sweet kiss, full of promises and hope. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too," again. Different, but stronger. 2 years later, Richard and Jennifer remarried in a small, intimate ceremony. Emma, now 2.5, was the flower girl, carrying the rings on a little pink cushion. The difference between this wedding and their first was striking. The first had been a grand affair with hundreds of guests, all planned to impress. The second was just close family and dear friends in a simple church, focused on what truly mattered, their love for each other. During the ceremony, when the pastor asked if anyone objected to the marriage, Emma shouted, "No!" at the top of her little lungs, making everyone laugh. "I think we have our daughter's approval," Richard whispered to Jennifer, who laughed until tears welled in her eyes. At the reception in a traditional local steakhouse, Richard gave an emotional speech. "5 years ago, I was a lost man, rich in money but poor in everything that truly matters. Jennifer gave me a second chance I didn't deserve, but I promised to honor it every day of my life. And Emma." He looked at the little girl playing with other guests. "Emma taught me that love has no limits, no conditions, no need for blood ties. She's my daughter in my heart, and soon she will be officially too." The adoption process had already begun and was nearly complete. In a few weeks, Richard would legally be Emma's father. 6 months after the wedding, Jennifer discovered she was pregnant again. This time, Richard reacted completely differently. He cried with joy, kissed her still flat belly, and immediately started planning the baby's room. "Are you really happy?" Jennifer asked, still unsure. "I'm overjoyed. Emma's going to have a little brother or sister. What if it's too much? What if I can't handle the dental practice and 2 kids? We'll handle it together. And if needed, you cut back on work, I'll cut back on mine. Our priorities have changed, remember? Richard had indeed changed his priorities. He delegated much of his business management to capable executives and switched to part-time work. He preferred being home, helping with Emma and supporting Jennifer. Emma, now a bright and talkative little girl, was thrilled about becoming a big sister. "Daddy, when's the baby coming?" she asked every day. "In a few months, sweetheart." "Can I teach them how to play?" "Of course you can. You'll be the best big sister in the world." Emma beamed proudly and ran off to tell her mother she'd teach the baby how to play. One day, when Jennifer was 6 months along, they got an unexpected call. It was from Emma's biological father. "Jennifer, it's me, Michael." Jennifer froze at the sound of her ex-boyfriend's voice. "What do you want, Michael?" "I need to talk to you, it's important." "We have nothing to discuss." "It's about Emma, about my rights as her father." "What rights?" "You gave up all rights." "That was before. So I've changed my mind." Jennifer hung up, trembling. Richard, who had overheard, immediately pulled her into a hug. "Who was that?" "Michael, Emma's biological father." "What did he want?" "I don't know. He said something about his rights as a father." Anger flared in Richard's chest, but he stayed calm to avoid alarming Jennifer. "We'll get a lawyer. We'll handle this." "What if he wants custody of Emma? What if he gets it?" "He won't. Emma is our daughter. She always has been. A signed paper won't change that." In the days that followed, Michael called repeatedly, sometimes polite, sometimes threatening. He claimed he regretted abandoning his daughter and now wanted to be part of her life. Richard and Jennifer sought out the best lawyer in town. Dr. William Thompson, an experienced and respected man, reviewed all the documents. "Your situation is solid," he said after examining the paperwork. He relinquished all parental rights. "The adoption process is underway. Emma has lived with you since birth, and Richard is recognized as her emotional father. A judge would hardly change that." "But why is he coming back now?" Jennifer asked. That's when they discovered the truth. Michael had separated from his wife and was fighting for custody of his 2 older children. His ex-wife was using his abandonment of Emma as proof he wasn't a good father. So he doesn't really want Emma, Richard realized. He just wants to use her to win custody of the others. "Exactly," the lawyer confirmed. "It's a dirty move, but common in cases like this." "What can we do?" "Speed up the adoption. I have connections in the judiciary. We can get the final ruling in 2 weeks." Those 2 weeks were tense. Michael kept calling and even showed up at Jennifer's dental practice. Richard had to restrain himself from confronting him. "You have no right to my daughter," Richard said when Michael appeared at their doorstep. "Your daughter?" Michael laughed. "She's my daughter, my blood." "Blood doesn't make family," Richard replied firmly. "Love does, presence does, and you have neither." "We'll see what the judge says about that." "Yes, we will." On the day of the hearing, Richard was nervous. What if the judge ruled in Michael's favor? What if Emma had to live with a stranger? Jennifer, despite her advanced pregnancy, insisted on being there. Emma stayed with Richard's mother, unaware of what was happening. The judge, Judge Robert Wilson, was known for being thorough and fair. He listened carefully to both sides. Michael had hired an expensive lawyer and arrived in a new suit, trying to portray himself as a responsible man. He spoke of regret, life changes, and wanting to know his daughter. "Your Honor," Michael's lawyer said, "my client acknowledges past mistakes, but is now ready to take responsibility as a father." "Ready how?" the judge asked. "You didn't check on the child for 3 years. No child support, no visits, no interest whatsoever. I was going through a tough time. And now? Why suddenly decide to know your daughter?" Michael stammered, scrambling for a convincing excuse. Richard and Jennifer's lawyer presented all the evidence. Photos of Richard with Emma since infancy, medical records listing him as the guardian, testimonies from neighbors and Jennifer's staff about his relationship with the girl. "Your Honor," Dr. Thompson said, "Richard Blackwell is Emma's father in every sense but biology. He's been there since birth, cared for her when she was sick, and is involved in every major decision about her upbringing and well-being. The judge reviewed the documents, examined the photos, and read the testimonies. "Mr. Michael," he finally said, "you signed away all rights to this child. You showed no interest for 3 years, and now you claim you've changed." "Yes, Your Honor. I regret. Your remorse would be more convincing if it weren't motivated by personal interests in another legal case." Michael paled. The judge knew about the custody battle for the other children. "Considering all the evidence presented," the judge continued, "I grant the adoption request. Mr. Richard Blackwell is now the legal father of the minor Emma Parker Blackwell. The records will be amended, and Mr. Michael permanently loses all rights to the child." Richard felt his legs tremble with relief. Jennifer cried with joy, even though she was pregnant and uncomfortable. It was over. Emma was officially Richard's daughter. When they arrived home, Emma ran to hug her parents. "Daddy, Mummy, how was your outing?" "It was wonderful, Princess," said Richard, scooping her into his arms. "Very, very wonderful." "Why are you crying?" "These are tears of happiness, sweetheart," Jennifer explained. "Sometimes people cry when they're very, very happy. I'm happy too." "Can I cry too?" Richard laughed and kissed his daughter's forehead. "Of course you can, Princess. Cry from happiness whenever you want." 3 months later, Ethan was born, Richard and Jennifer's first biological child together. Emma immediately fell in love with her little brother. "He's so tiny," she said, watching Ethan in his crib. "Was I that small too?" "Just the same," Richard replied, "and you'll teach him everything, like you promised." "I'll teach him how to play, how to talk, how to walk, and how to love," Jennifer added, "because that's what families do." Richard looked at his family, Jennifer tending to Ethan, Emma playing nearby, the house full of life and love, and realized he had everything he'd ever dreamed of. Not the perfect family from TV commercials, but a real family, with real problems, real love, real happiness. "What are you thinking about?" Jennifer asked, noticing his distant gaze. "How funny life is," he answered. "I spent years thinking I knew what success was, what happiness was. I built a financial empire believing it would make me whole. And now? Now I know I was completely wrong. My true success is right here, in this room, with the 3 of you. Everything else is just details." Emma came over and climbed into her father's lap. "Daddy, you're the best daddy in the world." "Why, Princess?" "Because you love me so much and take care of me and Ethan and Mommy." Richard felt tears welling in his eyes again. "And I'll always love you. Always, always. Even when I do something wrong? Especially when you do something wrong. That's when you'll need my love the most." "That's good," Emma smiled, snuggling against her father's chest. Jennifer watched the scene with a full heart. The man who had once been incapable of showing affection had become the most loving father she knew. "Richard," she said, when Emma fell asleep in his arms. Thank you." "For what?" "For becoming the man I always knew you could be. For loving our family the way you do. For giving me the chance to have all this." Richard carefully stood, carrying the sleeping Emma to her room. When he returned, he sat beside Jennifer on the bed where Ethan slept peacefully. "Jennifer, you're the one who gave me the chance. You were patient with me. You taught me what really matters in life. We taught each other. That's true, and we still have so much to learn together." "Do you want more children?" Jennifer asked, smiling. "As many as you want. Our home can be full of kids, mess, and love. Even knowing it'll be expensive, exhausting, and hard. Jennifer, I've learned that the best things in life are exactly like that. Expensive, exhausting, and hard. But they're also the most worth it." They stayed there, watching Ethan sleep, planning their future, grateful for the present. Richard thought about how his life had changed since that emergency dental care appointment. A toothache had led him back to the love of his life. "You know what's funny?" he said. "What?" "If I hadn't had that toothache, maybe we would never have found each other again." "Fate works in mysterious ways," Jennifer replied. Maybe we were meant to meet again. Do you believe in fate? I believe some people are made to be together. They might lose their way, make mistakes, or get hurt, but in the end they always find their way back to each other. Richard took Jennifer's hand and intertwined their fingers. So we were meant to be? We were. We are. We always have been. 2 years later, when Emma was 5 and Ethan 2, Jennifer discovered she was pregnant again, this time with twins. Twins? Richard repeated, stunned, staring at the ultrasound. 2 girls, the doctor confirmed with a smile. Daddy, are there 2 babies? Asked Emma, who had insisted on coming to the appointment. 2 little princesses, Richard answered, still processing the news. Am I going to have 2 little sisters? Yes, you are. Emma clapped her hands excitedly. And I'll teach them everything too. Of course you will, sweetheart, Jennifer said, smiling at her daughter's enthusiasm. On the way home, Richard was quiet. Are you worried? Jennifer asked. Just thinking, he replied. 5 kids, Jennifer. 5. You don't want them? I do. Of course I do. I'm just thinking about how we'll manage the practice, my company, the kids. We'll figure it out. We always do. Yeah, we always do. When they got home, Ethan was waiting at the door with the nanny. Mommy! Daddy! He shouted, running to hug them. Hi, sweetheart, Jennifer said, lifting him with some effort. How was your day? I played a lot. What about you? Did you see the baby in your belly? We did, Emma announced importantly. There are 2 babies. 2? Ethan's eyes widened. 2 little sisters, Richard explained. In a few months, our family will grow a little bigger. That's so cool, I'll have 3 sisters. That's right, champ. That night, after putting the kids to bed, Richard and Jennifer sat on their porch, planning the future. We'll need a bigger house, Richard said. You think so? 5 kids, Jennifer. We'll need more bedrooms, more bathrooms, more space to play. Do you want to move? I want our family to have the space they deserve. A house with a big backyard for the kids, a spacious kitchen for family Sundays, comfortable rooms for everyone. What about the location, near my practice? Wherever you want. I can work from anywhere now. My priorities have changed, remember? Jennifer smiled and nestled into her husband's arm. Sometimes I still can't believe this is all real. Why? Because it's everything I've ever dreamed of. A big family, a loving husband, happy kids, work I love. You deserve all that and more. We deserve it. We fought for it. We sure did. And every tear, every argument, every struggle was worth it. 6 months later, Olivia and Ava were born just 2 minutes apart, 2 identical girls with completely different personalities from birth. The delivery was smooth but intense. Richard was there, as always, holding Jennifer's hand and encouraging her. You're amazing, he whispered between contractions. You're the strongest woman I know. I couldn't do this without you, Jennifer replied, squeezing his hand. When the twins arrived, the delivery room filled with cries, theirs and their parents. Richard cried when he saw his daughters for the first time, cried with gratitude that Jennifer was okay, cried with pure happiness. They're perfect, he said, holding Olivia while Jennifer held Ava. They're our girls, whispered Jennifer, exhausted but radiant. Emma and Ethan, who were in the waiting room with their grandparents, were the first to meet their little sisters. They're so tiny, observed Ethan, amazed. How you were like that when you were born too, explained Emma, already experienced at being an older sister. Can I touch them? Yes, but be gentle, said Richard, guiding Ethan to softly stroke Ava's little head. Hi, little sister, whispered Ethan. I'm your brother, Ethan. And I'm your sister, Emma, the girl added. We'll take care of you. Richard and Jennifer exchanged a look, moved. Their family was complete. The first few months with the twins were challenging. 2 newborns, along with 5-year-old Emma and 2-year-old Ethan, required military-level organization. Richard had hired a nanny to help during the day, but insisted on being part of every routine. He woke up for late-night feedings, changed diapers, gave baths, and soothed them when they cried. You don't have to do all this, Jennifer said one particularly tough night when Olivia wouldn't stop crying. Yes, I do. They're my daughters. My responsibility too. But you have the company to run. The company can wait. My daughters can't. Richard had delegated nearly all his executive duties and worked only a few hours a day from home. His priority was his family. Emma became her parents' official helper. She helped prepare bottles, sang to her little sisters when they fussed, and alerted them when diapers needed changing. "Emma, you're my most important assistant," Richard would say whenever she helped. "I like taking care of them, Daddy. They're so cute." Ethan, initially jealous of all the attention the babies received, gradually adjusted. Richard and Jennifer made sure to spend one-on-one time with him too. "Ethan, do you want to help me give Ava a bath?" Richard invited one afternoon. "Can I?" "Of course. You're their big brother. They need to learn from you." Ethan felt important helping his parents and soon developed a protective love for his little sisters. When the twins turned 6 months old, the family moved into a bigger house in a family-friendly neighborhood. A 5-bedroom home with a spacious backyard, a pool, and plenty of greenery. "It's perfect," said Jennifer, watching the children play outside. "Now it really feels like a family home," Richard agreed, seeing Emma teach Ethan how to throw a ball while the twins napped in the shade of their stroller. "Do you regret anything?" Jennifer asked. "Wasting time being proud and stubborn, not being this man from the start. But if you'd been this man from the start, maybe you wouldn't appreciate what we have now so much." "True. Sometimes we need to lose something to learn its value. And now, are you happy?" Richard looked around. Emma running across the yard, Ethan trying to keep up, the twins sleeping peacefully, Jennifer by his side. "More than happy. I'm complete." The end. And you, what did you think of this story of second chances and true love? Do you believe Richard and Jennifer made the right choices? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one. Thank you for joining us.